UN65JS9500. It has a power issue, so we do get power, but when we boot it up, it doesn't actually turn on. So I'll go ahead and show you. We'll go ahead and plug that in. We do have our red standby light here, so I'll press the power button. Do that again. Okay, so it doesn't look like... Oh, there we go. Alright, so now our light is blinking. Normally for a Samsung, it's supposed to blink 5 times and then boot up. But if we take a look at the screen, it is just completely black. Nothing is popping up at all. Alright, so our first step is going to be removing the back cover and taking a look more closely at the circuit boards inside. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to do a resistance check on our fuses, and there are 4 of them on this board. We have one over here, over here, over here, and over here. And we do have more or less a short, which is what we want to see. A shorted fuse is a good fuse, and this one as well. Let's see these two. Okay, 0 ohms and 0 ohms. So all our fuses are good. At this moment, I have plugged the power supply back in, and the set was turned on, and I'm actually hearing an audible click. And I don't know if you can hear it. I believe it is coming from that transformer. Or possibly actually this relay over here. No, that's a capacitor. I have my multimeter set to DC volts, and I have my black lead is grounded, and I'm just going to do a few live voltage checks. So looking at this connector over here to the main board, I have a legend up here with some of our voltages. So it looks like pin 1 and 2 are 5 volts. So I'll go ahead and stick my lead into the connector, and we do have that 5 volts. I will also want to check our 13 volts. So that's going to be pins 16, 18, and 20. Okay, so that should be this one. 12.7, that's close enough. Okay, so it looks like all of our voltages, or most of our main voltages really going to the main board are present. And let's take a look over here. So this connector here goes to our LED driver board. Let's check to see if all of the voltages are present. This one has the legend down here, and we have pin 1 with 5 volts and pin 3 with 13 volts. So let's check those. So we have pin 1 here, and we have 5 volts. Let's take our 13 volts here. Oh, there we go. And 12.7 again. So it looks like our voltages for those 2 rails are present. Everything else seems to be ground, no connect. And then lastly, pin 13 to 22 is the VDRV. So let's take a look. What does that give us? And I can just do any of them, doesn't matter. And we're getting nothing. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure what the VDRV voltage is supposed to be, but I do know we're not getting anything at all. So we're going to probably focus on issues over here. Let's go ahead and disconnect it. We're going to go back to resistance mode here, and we're going to keep that on the chassis ground, and we're going to do some short checks. So I'm going to wait here about a minute or so for the power supply to discharge before I do my resistance checks. We're going to look at first these 2 transistors, the 2 diodes here, and then the other 2 transistors over here. So first we'll go and do a check here. Let's see. Okay, 10 kilo ohm, that's correct. 0.4, 0.6, yep, that's also good. And we'll do the final pin, and that is shorted. Okay, so we have a short to ground here. That's our first one. Alright, same readings. No short. Third pin. And third pin again, shorted to ground. Okay, we'll move on to the diodes. No short. Same with the middle pin. And the third pin. Oh, never mind. Okay, no short either. Finally, the second diode over here. 66 kilo ohms, that 1 kilo ohm. Okay, also no shorts. Alright, so we're all set. So these 2 diodes are good, and these 2 transistors are shorted to ground on that third pin. Let's go ahead and take a look at these over here. 12 ohms, 16, 19 ohms. Alright, that's going to be not quite a full short, but that is definitely still considered a short. So I think that this guy is damaged and we'll probably have to replace it. Okay, and then the middle pin's a dead short. Yep. Let's see, third pin, also shorted. Check this one. Oh, okay, 10K. This one might be good. 0 ohms. Okay, maybe not. And then third pin, also 0 ohms. Alright, we might have to do a replacement on both of these. Before we keep going, let's go ahead and actually just bring this power supply to the bench since we know for sure that this is the issue. We'll do some further troubleshooting from there. Since we found more shorts on these two transistors and only one pin shorted on these two transistors, I'm going to start by removing these two out of circuit and checking them out first. Now there is some silicone on here that I'm going to have to scrape off in order to be able to desolder the component. So just using some tweezers, I'm just going to scratch at it. Using a metal brush, I'm going to finish cleaning up the smaller pieces. And now that the area is clean, we can go ahead and start desoldering. Okay, just confirming, I have both of these pins are loose on both transistors. So for that last pin, what I'm going to do is actually just pull the transistor through. And then I'll use the solder pump once the transistor is out. Now both my transistors are removed. I'm going to do my final clean here. And now that the transistors are out of circuit, I'm going to recheck to see if the shorts are still present. I have, oh, and you know what, I'll do it same as I was doing before, off of ground instead. So we have 10 kilo ohms here. 2, 3, going up, 28, 27. Okay, short's gone there as well. And it looks like I still have a short here. Let's check these guys. 10 kilo ohms. 11, 12, going up, rising, and still a short over here. So to confirm, I'm going to see if any of these pins are shorted to one another. And it doesn't look like this transistor actually has any shorts. Let's take a look at this one. This one does. This one has those pins. Oh, it looks like all 3 pins might be shorted to one another. Yep. Since these are in parallel, I'm going to be replacing both of them. But it looks like we need to do a little bit more work to get rid of the shorts that are still present on the board. Off screen, I took another look at our circuit, and I realized that I just wasn't really paying attention. The pin over here that is shorted to ground is supposed to be shorted to ground because it is ground. And one way that I figured it out is because I would just follow the trace and I went to the capacitor leg here and noticed that this is the negative side of the capacitor, and this leg over here is the positive side of the capacitors, located right here. We're going to be replacing these two transistors, and I have two replacements right here. I'm going to bend the pins out a little bit so they can fit. I'm going to bend it into the proper shape first, and then I'll go ahead and put the thermal paste on there afterwards. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, that's also going to be a little bit too much, so I'll have to transfer a little bit. So for this job here, I'm using the ceramic 2 thermal compound from Arctic Silver. And this stuff can get on your hands, so I should probably be wearing gloves. I don't believe it's toxic in any way, but and okay, here we go. I'm going to give it a little bit of a pull so it clears. I want to make sure I'm able to make good contact with the iron with it. We're going to do one last check, make sure that our shorts are still gone. Oops. And we have 10 kilo ohms, 4.5, 5 kilo ohms, and rising. And of course our last one, as we found out, is ground, and that is normal because it is the negative side of this capacitor. We'll check the other one, 7 kilo ohms, 8 kilo ohms, and rising. And over here 10 kilo ohms, and of course ground. Alright, so the last step we're going to do is power this back up. We're going to do it out of the TV and do some live voltage checks on the bench. Alright, I have my power plugged in over here, and it is in a surge protector, so it's technically off still. It's not connected quite yet. I'm in my DC volt mode, and I'm going to be using my negative lead on ground here and positive to make my voltage checks. So we'll power it on. Okay, nothing blue, that's good. Let's do a check here. Hey, we have 30 volts. Yep, over here as well. All right, I flipped the board over. I'm turning it back on. We're gonna do another check using ground, this time top right of, well, actually it's off screen, so let me use the negative of this capacitor here. Move that out of the way. Okay, and we're going to recheck the pins over here that were pins, it looked like 13 through 22, and earlier we're showing 0 volts. Now we're getting that 30 volts. So we're going to be feeding that power to, I believe was the LED driver board. Last thing to do is bring it back to the TV, plug it in, and make sure everything is fully functional in the set. We're back at the TV. I have already screwed the power supply back in, and the cables are connected back in again. This is the first time I'm plugging in it live, and we'll see what happens. Our standby light is already flashing. Nothing's exploding over there, so that's good news. And sure enough, look at that. We have picture on screen.